Jasmine Kaur was born on September 14, 1999 in India. To be clear, the term Kaur means princess. It is often used as a middle name but only for strong female characters. In our history, this is the surname of the heroines. It is known that their mother Raj Paul after Justin gave birth to twin brothers Gurman and Sukma. The family experienced difficulties in 2017 after the children's father passed away. Jasmine was only 6 years old at the time. She knew that her relatives lived in Australia, and when she turned 18 she decided to go there in search of new prospects. A girl who was drawn to medicine and the desire to help people went to enter the University of South Australia to take exams and enroll in the Bachelor of Nursing program in order to at least have something. Uncle Sam Bordu, who lived in Adelaide with his wife Raman Deba and daughter, warmly received his niece and she settled with them. Jasmine, who provided for her family, volunteered to cook for them and, it should be noted, she coped with this mission perfectly. Despite her youth, Jasmine showed herself to be a reliable and responsible girl. She has also proven herself to be a talented makeup artist and fashion expert, and freely shared her experiences. Jasmine's good upbringing and education from her parents matched her generosity, and she was a role model for everyone around her. The girl really missed her mother. Every day she talked to her mother and other close family members on the phone, sharing details of her life. Jasmine took up a position at a suburban Adelaide nursing home to gain real-world experience before finishing medical school. It is believed that it was here that she first met Tariq Jat Sinhi. Tariq Jat was born to Indian parents in a Punjabi village in 1999 as their first child. After some time, Singh Khan, their second child, was born. Tariq Hoda's upbringing was depressing and hopeless. There was an unpleasant mood in the house because Singh Khan was an extremely harsh and confrontational person. The children's father was a farmer on a small plot of land where the family lived. His sons grew up fearing their father because he liked to use violence to resolve disputes. Nevertheless, their mother was a kind of refuge for them, capable of comforting and reassuring them. The brothers also loved their maternal grandparents very much, and Tariq Joto's sincerity and simple presence improved the school atmosphere. He was also an excellent student and continued to gain new information. The young guy had to choose his future course of study in high school, as is customary in India. Having achieved the best grades, he demonstrated to everyone that he was on the right path and that a brilliant future awaited him. When Tariq Jat graduated from high school in 2016, his grandparents were able to raise some money for their grandson and help him move to Australia, which had been luring him there for some time. Like many other young men of the time, he finally took advantage of the fantastic opportunity to settle in the quaint city of Adelaide. He was enrolled as a student after passing a standardized English language test, which was the main requirement for admission to the University of South Australia. After some reflection, Tariq Joto decided to pursue a bachelor's degree in information technology while working towards his goal of supporting himself. Tariq Joto had to work to support himself, but this was not a problem. He tried his hand at many jobs, most of which were related to caring for the elderly. Colleagues and employers loved and respected him and left positive reviews and recommendations about him. Personally, however, he continued to work hard, and it quickly became apparent that his true goal was to show compassion and help the poor and unfortunate. Over time, things got better for Tariq Jat. Having saved some money, he moved to another apartment on the outskirts of the city and shared it with another young man with whom he immediately became friends. Tariq Jat and Justin first met in 2018. The latter has already made huge progress in her career. Her colleagues noticed her unwavering dedication and positive attitude, and her employer was delighted to find such a sweet and kind-hearted employee. It is not surprising that Tariq Jat, who was adored for the same qualities, quickly became close to Jasmine. They socialized at work and went to social events together, and soon their professional relationship became romantic. By April 2020, they were engaged. Tariq Jat has always been honest about his true intentions. He immediately said that he sees in the girl a person with whom he wants to spend the rest of his life and create a strong family. But over time, he began to have some doubts about Jasmine's intentions. Jealousy overcame him, and he began to control the girl's every move, demanding from her detailed reports about her whereabouts and communication partners. And if she had plans to go somewhere with friends after work, he would immediately be upset with her. He also made unfounded accusations and harassed Jasmine until one day he asked her to leave her friends and return home immediately. Having learned about her boyfriend's complete control, she told her mother about her experiences because she could no longer endure such a life. Naturally, her mother did not approve of their relationship and was on her side. But Tariq Jat didn't care what others thought. He wanted to be sure that his beloved would be with him forever because he was so absorbed in his own world. Despite their differences, Tariq Jat bought engagement rings and proposed to Jasmine in October 2020. Despite the problems in the relationship, the girl accepted his proposal in a state of joy. Tariq Jat did not calm down at all. Rather, this only increased his fears. Now he took advantage of every free minute and appeared at Jasmine's place of work without warning, constantly wanting to keep an eye on her. When Jasmine's euphoria caused by the marriage proposal ended, the girl came to her senses and began to think about the actions of the groom. Her idea of breaking up with Tariq Jat began to weigh heavily on Jasmine's mind as she realized that the relationship was detrimental to her mental and emotional well-being. After serious consideration, on January 4, 2021, the girl informed him that they should end the relationship. However, Tariq responded to her with angry threats and a statement that he would commit suicide. The next day after finishing work, Jasmine saw Tariq Jat watching her through the window. When she went to talk to him during a break, he begged her to stay again, but she was adamant in her decision. Later, Tariq Jat again threatened to harm himself and stated that she would be responsible for everything that happened to him. That same evening, Jasmine discovered that Jat had taken a lot of sleeping pills. She never took his words seriously and did not think that he was capable of this. The concerned girl contacted his flatmate. A friend arrived and took Jat to the hospital, where he wrote a statement in which he claimed that he tried to take his own life but did not take responsibility for. The next morning, January 6, 2021, the man was examined by a psychiatrist. The specialist found no signs of mental illness in the patient and concluded that the overdose was most likely caused by an inability to cope with a breakup. Tariq blamed her family, implying that her relatives influenced the decision to end the relationship. After he was discharged from the hospital a few hours later, he unexpectedly showed up at Jasmine's house and insisted on having an important conversation. His true intention was to win the girl's affections and convince her to continue the relationship. But this attempt failed again because Jasmine refused. The man was furious and wanted to take revenge on her, and in an attempt to return his beloved, he threatened to release her intimate videos on the internet. Tariq Jat understood perfectly well that this would be unbearable for Jasmine's pious family. But the trick did not have the expected result. Therefore, seeing the girl's indifference, Tariq Jat sent the video to her mother. Her mother was shocked and contacted her daughter, who was understandably upset about the whole situation. The next day, the envious man appeared at Jasmine's workplace. He stood next to his car and waited patiently for her to finish her shift. Although the girl ignored him and just walked away, this time he didn't give up. Instead, he slowly followed her in his car. But after a few minutes, he abruptly stopped following her, and she was able to get home without any problems. Jasmine was too mentally exhausted, so she hardly slept the next night. Every day, Tariq Jat put more and more pressure on Jasmine, threatening to share intimate videos with others if she did not immediately return to him. For the girl, January 28, 2021 became a fateful day. She officially reported her ex-fiancé's stalking to the police after she could no longer stand it. Given the seriousness of the situation, the police began an investigation and met with Tariq Jat on February 9 to find out what happened. As a result, the young man received a warning for inappropriate behavior. It is important to note that by this time Tariq Jat had developed a habit of writing rude and offensive messages, most of which were never sent to Jasmine. These texts demonstrated the extent of his obsession. A few days later, the man tried to commit suicide again, but was saved in time by his roommate. When the hospital asked him why he did this, Tariq Jat asked not to be hospitalized and explained that he could not survive the breakup. Surprisingly, they listened to him and released him under the supervision of a doctor. A few days later, the man began taking prescription medications for diagnosed depression, anxiety, and agitation. But at the same time, he began to have thoughts of harming Jasmine, and they began to become more and more intrusive. With careful concentration, Tariq Jat began to formulate his terrible plan. On March 4, 2021, he managed to obtain a map that showed the locations of almost all CCTV cameras in Adelaide. The next day, he inserted his SIM card into another phone and left it at home so that he could have an alibi. In addition to avoiding camera surveillance, He also took his neighbor's car, a blue SUV, so that none of his friends would recognize him. That same day, Tariq Jat bought gloves, cable ties, tape and a shovel from a hardware store. However, he did not realize that the CCTV cameras in the store were recording his every move. He then went to Jasmine's place of work and waited for her to leave. She didn't know what awaited her when, at about 10 o'clock in the evening, the girl left work and went out onto the empty street. Suddenly Tariq Jat rushed at her, grabbed her hands and pulled the car into the cabin. After taping Jasmine's mouth and eyes and tying his hands and feet, he drove to a remote location, loaded his ex-fiancée into the trunk of a car and headed north to the town of Halkar, which is about 400 kilometers from Adelaide. During the night from 11:30 p.m. to 4:30 a.m., 5 city surveillance cameras captured several images of the car he was driving. Arriving at a place known only to him, Rick Jat got out of the car and began digging a shallow grave on the side of the road that passed through the area. He then opened the trunk and tried to stab Jasmine in the throat but was unable to cause any serious harm, unable to undo what he started. He put the girl down. After burying the grave, Tariq Jat got into his car and drove away and threw away Jasmine's things along with the last cable ties, tape and other items. He also threw away his gloves and balaclava. The place where he destroyed the evidence is known as Death Rock. All this happened at dawn on March 6th. That day, Jasmine's family noticed that she had not returned home and became worried. The employer also became concerned when he noticed that the employee's car was still parked in front of the building. Having no idea about Jasmine's whereabouts, relatives contacted the authorities to report her disappearance. Detective Debray, who oversaw the investigation, was confident that the girl was being held against her will and considered it unlikely that she had arrived there alone or with someone else. Hoping that this would provide some information, Bray reviewed CCTV footage from Jasmine's place of work. One of the recordings from last night shows a person wandering around the building. Later, the man was seen driving in the fog most of the morning. Authorities are appealing to anyone with information about a young man in his 20s, who may have known Jasmine, or who was in the area in the days leading up to her disappearance to positively identify the suspect. Unfortunately, no one responded. Investigators visited Tariq Jat on March 7th because they knew that a complaint of persecution had been filed against him before. At first, he denied any involvement in the girl's disappearance, but then stated that he and Jasmine had quarreled and that she had tried to commit suicide. Tariq Jat claimed that he buried his bride in an isolated place after he concluded that she had died. When police dug up Jasmine's body the next day, they found that her hands were tied behind her back and she was covered in 30 centimeters of sand. The detainee himself led them to this terrible place. The victim's throat was cut, but the wounds were clearly superficial. Her legs were tied with a rope and her eyes and mouth were sealed with tape. The body was transferred for forensic examination. Tariq Jat was immediately charged with a crime. The young man was accused of not reporting the girl's death. It was necessary to inform the police. Because of this accusation, he was denied the opportunity to leave his place of residence, and the investigation was confident that the man would not run away anywhere. Serious inaccuracies in Tariq Jat's testimony during interrogation led to his arrest, and an autopsy of Jasmine's remains indicated that the cause of her death was oxygen deprivation and that she was still alive at the time of burial. Ultimately, these results underscored just how horrific this incident was. Tariq Jat was placed in a cell and charged with murder on March 8, 2021. The man insisted on his innocence, but the court refused to grant him bail. A few days later, someone discovered Jasmine's belongings at Death Rock. Prosecutors requested a minimum of 9 months to prepare for the trial of the accused criminal. However, when the meeting was supposed to take place, Tariq Jat fell ill with coronavirus. The man's initial appearance in the Supreme Court was scheduled for March 2022. After Martin Anders tested positive for COVID, the suspect's lawyer appeared at the hearing declaring his client's innocence and vigorously defending him. The Adelaide Supreme Court only postponed the trial until February 6, 2023, after which Tariq Jat openly admitted his guilt and stated that he kidnapped Jasmine with the intention of killing her. His testimony spared the grieving family from a protracted trial during which extremely painful questions would have arisen at the same time. A sincere confession provided the criminal with a slightly more lenient punishment. 5 months later, on July 5, 2023, in the Supreme Court of South Australia, a judge sentenced Jat to life imprisonment, In an attempt to overturn the decision, the lawyer emphasized that the breakup had greatly affected his client and mentioned Tariq Jotto's alleged mental health problems. But the judge did not give the defense the opportunity to point out Tariq Jotto's careful preparation of every aspect of the murder, and his calm demeanor in the face of a complete lack of empathy for the victim. At the sentencing hearing on August 1, 2023, the judge determined that the non-parole period should be 20 years. The judge made this decision after considering a number of circumstances including age, background and mental health problems. Tariq Jotto received a life sentence with the possibility of parole. It indicated that he would be able to exercise this right in 2044, 22 years and 10 months later. However, if Tariq Jot is released, he will have to leave the country. Before the hearing ended, the judge explained to Tariq Jot what these actions meant to him. He noted that the killer made every effort to hide his tracks from the scene of the horrific crime. Having walked from the place where he kidnapped the girl to the place of her burial, Tariq Jot had enough time to think and decide not to implement his further plan. But he decided to move on. Raj Paul expressed satisfaction with the verdict but said that she would never be happy again because more than anything in the world she wanted her daughter to be next to her. The inconsolable mother also mentioned that she misses Jasmine during their daily conversations, and that she still wishes her good night every evening as she has done for almost 20 years. She acknowledged that justice had been served and that it had brought her some relief, but noted that the criminal could be released after 22 years while she and her family would have to live without her beloved Jasmine for the rest of her life. In order to never forget the beautiful heart and pure soul of the girl, close relatives of the deceased decided to dedicate a special place in their home in her honor. Friends, write your opinion in the comments, and also subscribe to the channel and watch my other videos. Thank you all.